Have you ever wondered if we are the only living beings in the universe? Like everyone else, I've also asked myself that question. With every day that passes, we discover that the universe is a little bigger and we are a little smaller. It always seemed ridiculous to think that we are the only living beings in this universe. What I never really expected was to have the opportunity to confirm my suspicions, to have the chance to see with my own eyes that we are not alone. This happened on my father's farm. It was an ordinary day. We didn't have crop circles or see flying saucers or any of those things that usually appear in the movies. It was nighttime, and when it all happened, I was in bed sleeping. My father came to wake me up and told me that there was an imposter on the farm, and to top it off, there was no light. I may still have been a minor then, but I could already defend the farm with my father if someone came in to steal from us. I turned on my cell phone flashlight and went downstairs with my father and brother to see who the invader was. On the other hand, my mother stayed with my younger brother in his room. As we descended the stairs, the intruder soon revealed his position. We could hear strange noises outside, as if one or two people were clumsily going through the garbage. At that moment, we thought that maybe it was a vagrant. But how did he get in? My dad told my brother to lock the back door while we checked, to which he agreed. With my dad holding a shotgun, we went outside and started checking. Trash cans and other tools were on the floor. Someone had thrown them out. But to our surprise, nothing had been stolen. My father was not relieved by this, so he told me to find my brother and lock myself in with him, as this was dangerous for both of us. I went back into the house, but my brother was not in the kitchen. I heard some noises in the dining room, so I assumed it was him. I ran over, calling out to him, and that's when I saw him. A massive silhouette of almost 2.5 meters stood in front of me, staring at me. It was pitch black, so I couldn't see his face or his body, but this was definitely real. I ran to the kitchen to escape, but the back door was locked. If my brother didn't escape through there, where was he? I got under the table and let the tablecloth cover me. A few seconds later, I heard someone walking in the kitchen. This being walked slowly and patiently, stopping every so often. Whatever was there, it was looking for me. In the middle of this, I thought the light had returned because suddenly a strong glow invaded the whole kitchen. But that light was different from the one in the room. It was more intense, and it was more focused on where the noises were. From 1 second to the next, I began to feel very dizzy. I felt like vomiting, and I covered my mouth to avoid it. I started to shake, and my vision became blurry. In the middle of the confusion, things got even worse. A long, horrible hand was reaching under the table looking for me. The hand was gray and scrawny. The fingers were huge and nailless. They were reaching farther and farther out, just millimeters away from touching me. I felt dizzier and dizzier. My eyes couldn't resist, and they closed. But in the middle of it, the hand stopped while I heard a door slam and my father's scream a few meters away. When I woke up, I was in bed. Everyone was acting normal. I asked my father what had happened. He looked complicit with my older brother and mother. They explained how a homeless man came into the house and my father bullied him and threw him out. I pretended I didn't see what I saw and accepted his story. I could see my family's eyes of fear as they told it. I knew it was a lie. I knew that day we encountered beings that did not belong to this world, but I understood that they did not want to scare me. After that, we never had any more intruders in this house. However, sometimes I hear strange noises outside, as if someone is walking around the house, watching it. Whenever this happened, I decided just to close my eyes and wait for the sun to come up. Have you ever been on a farm? When people come to visit me at my farm, they usually think it's a boring place with no technology and people who are not civilized. They couldn't be more wrong. Today on farms there's Wi-Fi, computers, and much more technology than they think. But it wasn't always like this. When I was growing up, there were still some people who hated technology, but even more, the city people who brought it. At the time I met such a person, I was only 12 years old. I had gone to visit my uncle's farm. He liked technology, but didn't understand anything about it. That same day, he went shopping in town while I stayed with my cousin. Excited to be there, I wanted to show her my drone. At the time, they weren't as popular as they are now, but my father collected them and knew I could be trusted to show my cousin and uncle. I turned on the drone and started flying it all over the farm. I got past the farm and went to the neighbor's house, but when I did, my cousin panicked and told me to get it out of there as fast as I could. As I was redirecting the drone back to the house, I noticed a person come out and stare at it. The man was terrifying. He was dressed like a bearded hillbilly that you saw in the old movies. The man was gigantic, and his eyes denoted terrible anger. Why was the man so enraged? My cousin told me to hurry, to get the drone now, that I had to get out of there as fast as possible. So I did. I drove the drone to the house, but when I realized, the man was behind us, chasing the drone. As soon as I entered the house through the upstairs window, the man was in front of the door, kicking it open. My cousin was terrified. She told me that this was Bob, and that my uncle always told her that we should never go near his property. We hid in the closet while the man screamed at the top of his lungs in the house, breaking everything in sight. Without wasting much time, the man came up the stairs and started looking for us. With great force, he lifted the bed to look for us and threw it against the wall with frightening ease. Meanwhile, I had to hold my cousin so she wouldn't cry, but that wasn't enough. The man heard us and opened the closet door, violently pulling us out of the closet and lifting us up with one hand. When he saw my cousin, he gave her an angry look and threw her to the side. I was the one he was interested in. The man insulted me in the most violent and threatening way possible. He told me that he hated city people like me, people who thought we could invade his property without the slightest interest in him, people who would destroy the peace of the farm by bringing in noise and technology. He told me that he didn't care that I was a child, since when I grew up, I would surely be the same. My only response was to cry and cry. I was helpless in front of this monster who seemed to get angrier and angrier with each passing second. The man started to shake me, and in an act of bravery, I bit his hand. I thought he was going to release me from the pain, but I only made him angrier, and his response was horrendous. Grabbing me by the neck, he took me to the drone and stomped on it until it broke. Once he was done with it, he threw me out the window. I remember the fall lasted only 2 seconds, but it felt like it had been going on for hours. When I fell, I didn't feel anything, or at least I don't remember it. I woke up a few days later in the city hospital. I found out that I almost didn't survive, and that if my uncle hadn't arrived on time that day, I wouldn't have made it, as the man came downstairs and was ready to finish his work. My uncle was injured in the fight with him, but at least it was not in vain, as shortly thereafter the police arrested him and locked him up for attempted murder. Today, my uncle is no longer with us. I took over his farm while my cousin lives in the city, although she sometimes comes to visit me. The man's house was left uninhabited, as he never returned and no one came to claim it. Every time I pass by, I remember that day. I remember how the man stormed out of the house, ready to hurt an innocent child. After that, I just turn my head away. There are memories that are not worth reliving. Hey guys, my name is Al. Many in the town I used to live in may not know this, but I'm a hero. Without me, my 2 innocent little boys would have been victims of something terrible. A being so dark and strange that if it weren't for that being attacking my children, I wouldn't have had the courage to face it, face to face. It all happened one morning when I was returning from shopping for my 2 children. Mom was at home waiting for me to make lunch, but when I parked the truck, I noticed something was wrong. The boys were running into the cornfield, which I've always strictly forbidden them to do as I lose sight of them. I was worried that they were ignoring me, as many children had been missing in the last few weeks. I headed in their direction to challenge them, but first I was going to leave all the things from the store inside the house. But halfway there, the purchases fell out to my surprise. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The scarecrow had moved on its own, and it was impossible. Its bizarre straw face turned and began to look at me, then came to life and walked towards the children. Immediately after I saw that, I ran towards the farmyard shouting at the children. I saw them in the distance and they saw me, but for some reason they panicked and ran even more. I didn't understand why they were so scared to see me, but when I turned around, I realized they weren't looking at me. Behind me, the scarecrow was standing imposingly. Somehow the strange being grabbed me with its soft hand and lifted me up smoothly. It began to choke me with a strength I could not even consider human. Slowly losing my vision, I was fainting from lack of air. Suddenly, a kick hitting the air managed to hit the scarecrow and it fell back. I took advantage of this small respite to run in the direction of my children. The tree was too high and I couldn't see them, but they were shouting, "Dad, help!" so I could guess where they were. Behind me, I heard many noises. This being was following me. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't understand how it could be alive, but I didn't care. I just wanted to protect my children. I almost reached the end of the field and found them crying on the side. I told them that it was all over, that I would take them home and we would eat lunch, and that the monster would never hurt anyone. But they just kept crying, louder and louder. Poor kids, they were really shocked. I tried to grab them by the hands, but I felt something grab me from behind and throw me back against the masonry. I thought it was the scarecrow again. I was ready to fight for my children, but no, it was an ordinary man. My children ran to him. For some reason, they called him Daddy. Had they gone crazy? The man stood guard, waiting to attack me if I went first, but soon after, many other men joined him, whom I recognized from the neighborhood. They all grabbed me and started holding me. Did they think I was the one attacking the children, my own children? The men kicked me to the ground and held me against the fence. Soon after, the police arrived and took me into custody. I told them everything that had happened, and they didn't believe me for some reason. To make it worse, they went to my house and found a room with more than 10 children. I told them they were my children, like the ones I'd saved that day, but they didn't believe me. They took me to court and concluded that I must go to a center for crazy people to recover. The doctors told me that I have a problem in my head called schizophrenia. They told me to take someone else's children and take them with me, and that, with time, I'll get better. I always tell them yes and pretend they're right. Only I know the truth, and the truth is that I'm a hero. The world is not ready to know that there are things beyond their knowledge. I just hope that scary scarecrow doesn't attack again. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, join us by subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so you never miss new videos. If you have a story that you would like to be featured in one of the future videos, please submit it to the email in the description below. And thank you for being a part of our community.